I want to welcome you all here today, and it is wonderful to be launching our new book here in Austin, the music capital of the country and now the literary capital in my adopted hometown.
And I'm John O'Leary, and I'm not from these parts, but I do love Austin, and I'm not just saying that. 10 years ago, I started dating a gal who was living here in Austin, and 9 years ago, I popped the question while dancing at the Broken Spoke, and about 6 weeks ago, we welcomed our third child, and his name is Austin Patrick O'Leary.
There you go.
So when I say I love Austin, I really mean it. And we're delighted to be here to talk about our new book, If We Can Put a Man on the Moon.
If we can put a man on the moon. How many times have you heard that phrase?
If we can put a man on the moon, why can't we end homelessness?
If we can put a man on the moon, why can't we fix our schools?
If we can put a man on the moon, why can't we put metal in a microwave?
I don't know. Now, it didn't start off as a cliche, of course. It started off in 1961 as a challenge issued by President John F. Kennedy.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind. Pass the chowder, Bobby. It was an impossible challenge, but America pulled together. And in July of 1969, Neil Armstrong planted that American flag on the moon. And it was an achievement that, for anyone who saw it, was just an amazing accomplishment. It was like flying solo across the Atlantic, climbing Mount Everest, reaching the North Pole, all wrapped into one. And young people who saw it were especially impacted, especially one young man in Hawaii named Barack Obama.
Barack Obama, as a young boy, remembered sitting on my grandfather's shoulders and watching the Apollo astronauts come ashore in Hawaii. I sat there and I know my grandfather explained with pride and assurance how we Americans could do anything we set out our minds to accomplish. Now, who could argue that American government wasn't capable after putting a man on the moon?
We had won World War II, helped rebuild Europe. Oh, there's Barack Obama. We had won World War II, helped rebuild Europe through the Marshall Plan. We had done the national highway system. We had split the atom with the Manhattan Project. America was a can-do nation. But now, are we still justifiably proud of our great accomplishments? Can we still say the same about our government today? Do we still have that pride?
And the question of the day is our government capable of executing on our most important challenges? And recent events aren't likely to lead to any ticker tape parades.
We have the Iraq and Katrina, Boston's own Big Dig and its collapsing tunnel, the brutal economic meltdown. Political observers know that we have a crisis right now in trying to accomplish big things. And the man in the street knows we have a big problem. So do public officials. We surveyed members of the senior executive service, and 60% said that government was less capable today of executing on large projects than it was 30 years ago. President Obama even made note of it a couple of weeks ago in his radio address when he said, he raised the question, whether or not we as a nation are capable of tackling our toughest challenges if we can still do big things in America. And we didn't ask him to say that, but that is what he said. It's a question everybody's thinking of today.
And the answer really depends on whose side you're on.
Because everyone's asking, who's to blame for our current crisis? And some people come up with the answer of George W. Bush,
Barack Obama,
Newt Gingrich,
Nancy Pelosi,
it's those Republicans,
the Democrats,
the greedy contractors,
it's the unions,
Michael Moore,
Rush Limbaugh.
It's familiar, right? Who's to blame? It's what everybody asks. And it's a natural question to ask because whenever something goes wrong, the normal instinct is to find out whose fault it was.
All you need to do is visit a bookstore and go into the current events section. It's filled with villains.
We have some of the titles up here, some very inspirational titles. Bookshelf Full of Blame.
Now, I, of course, wanted to appear on the cover of our book in short little black mini dress, but I thought it would generate a little buzz, but John talked me out of it.
I have my limits, yeah.
Yes. Instead of who's to blame, we asked a different question. Why do some big initiatives fail, and why do some succeed?
So to answer that question, we studied 75 major undertakings from the end of World War II until recent times, looking for patterns of success and failure, because we're looking for a journey to success.
We looked at everything from the success of the Marshall Plan to the struggles of immigration reform. We looked at the wars on poverty and the wars on inflation to real wars in Iraq and Vietnam.
Now, when we began the task of trying to review 75 major undertakings and really understand them, we realized that we were going to require a small army of thoughtful, intelligent people who understood government and yet were willing to work for nothing.
Well, we needed grad students. Thank you. Yes. And so we actually had over 70 grad students participate in helping us with this book, from the LBJ School to Columbia, from Harvard to Berkeley. And we could not have done this book without their help.
And with their help, we sought to understand the patterns of success and failure to get under that essential question of why can our government sometimes do such great things and why other times it struggles mightily to do things that we want it to do. We were looking for a path to success.
Now, we each bring a very distinct perspective to this issue. John here is an MIT engineer by training, and he does process mapping for making toast in the morning.
So like any good engineer, I looked at this as a process, and I broke it into its component steps. And we looked at these initiatives, and while they all were very, very different, I mean, the war on poverty is very different than the war in Iraq, but all these large undertakings exhibited a pattern, a set of steps that they all had to go through.
We call that the journey to success. Now, there are lots of different ways an initiative can end in disaster. But to achieve success, certain things need to happen. You need to have a good idea. Start up. Then you need to have an implementable design, a design that's going to work in the real world. You need to then go through the moment of democratic commitment, which we call the Stargate. Now, just guess who came up with that term right there. And then you need to go through effective implementation, and then you need to achieve your results. And those are the basic steps.
We use this map to help guide our inquiry, and it was really helpful in helping the patterns of success and failure make itself clear, and you could see the root causes of why things succeeded or failed. Now, Bill comes at this as a consultant. So he is doing a SWOT analysis before he goes grocery shopping. And he does this because he doesn't like unpleasant surprises. He's often called into government projects when they've already gone wrong.
And this naturally leads me to look for all the potential problems, to look at all the systemic barriers to success, because failure and problems can lurk at every phase of this journey, from idea to results. And we identified essentially a set of traps that most government initiatives end up facing. We call these the 7 deadly traps on the journey to success.
And the hard part is that these traps don't announce themselves with trumpets blaring. The challenges in the public sector are often hidden, and it's a lot different than the private sector terrain. There's a difference in trying to do big things in government. It's sort of like trying to get to the top of Mount Everest. It's helpful to have a map, but just because you have a map, it doesn't mean you're going to get to the top. And so what our book is really about is about trying to explore the journey and trying to help people understand what they will see throughout the journey from an idea to results.
Now, don't worry, we're not going to go through all of these 7 traps today. To know all about the traps, you're going to have to read our book. And they will be available, signed copies at Barnes & Noble's tent afterwards. They make for very good holiday presents for you and your loved ones, we promise.
So let's start by looking at the idea phase. Now, we all know that not all ideas are created equal, right? The pogo copter wasn't a good idea. The pogo copter? Right, never mind. The new Coke, the electric fork, which never really caught on, and whip inflation now buttons, which President Ford asked us to wear in order to curb inflation. Okay? Not a good idea. But ideas are the first phase in the public policy journey, and you cannot have a successful result if you begin with a flawed idea. So we tried to look at how ideas get talked about. And one of the things is in Washington, ideas get mixed up with ideology.